My name is India. We're in a little bit of a different spot just because there's sun and there's this big window, and I just felt like being in this room. I have some tea. I have some cookies that I made last night. It's a beautiful sunny day to be talking about the books that I read in January. The sun is a little bit odd, so whether you see reflections or like, it's okay. So, the books I read in January. First, we're gonna do some housekeeping regarding my TBR. So, at the beginning of the year, my TBR was at 266, and I was like, that number is way too high. I ended up hauling 31 books. If you want to see what books those are, I'll leave that video linked somewhere. Ended up hauling 31 books. Oof. Unhauled 7 books, DNF'd 1 book, and read 8 books. So my TBR right now is at 281 books, which is an increase, but I'm gonna do. All right, into the books. The first book that I finished was kind of like a carryover from 2020, and that is Hood Feminism, Notes from the Women that a Movement Forgot by Mickey Kendall. Okay, that is better. This is feminist nonfiction about the political and social issues that we as in mainstream white feminism doesn't typically think about when talking about feminism. So these issues include gun violence, these issues include hunger, the politics of parenting and parenthood, and like the things that are lost when feminism focuses on kind of this like girl boss, economic ladder climbing and like breaking the glass ceiling, and again, who that kind of like method or focus leaves behind. I thought this was really well done. It covers so many elements of like intersectional feminism. I think this is a good book for anybody. Like I would recommend this to someone who hasn't read anything about feminism, or to someone who is pretty well versed and has read a lot of feminist stuff. I don't know. I just think that this is a great book. The first book that I picked up and finished and read in whole in 2021 is The Known World by Edward P. Jones. Fun fact, my grandpa and I buddy read books together. He's a retired English teacher who lives in rural Idaho, and one of the books we read together is The Known World, which is about a huge cast of characters who are all kind of tied to this one man who is a Black man who was born into enslavement, and in his life gets to a point where he owns slaves and owns a plantation, and so it's about that. This book reminded me of the structure of Virginia Woolf's longer novels because of like some of the literary elements that it employs. So there's a lot of free indirect discourse of like within one page and within one paragraph, we get into the minds and perspectives of multiple characters. And at the end, there's this letter that brought out one of the characters in the book in a way that I like thought was so cool. And I was like, I would like to read more about like how that happened. I do think this is a good book, and I would recommend if you're looking for some historical fiction in this vein. We have 3 books that I'm not gonna go into too much detail about because I did a whole reading vlog. Is that already up? I don't know. Do I have a schedule for these things? No. But the books are The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, Push by Sapphire, and Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I read these for a reading vlog where I read books by a certain color. Next, the Black Like We Never Left readathon, which happened over on Instagram on Cree Miles' channel, was a Toni Morrison readathon. Participants were given the option to read Beloved, Sula, or Song of Solomon. I've read both Beloved and Sula twice and love them so much, and honestly would love to continue rereading them throughout my life. But I did want to pick up Song of Solomon since I hadn't read it yet. This is about Milkman Dead, who feels stuck under his father's control, and his father is this like wealthy landlord, I guess, and he feels detached and has this like weird relationship with his mom, who was the daughter of like one of the most famous Black doctors in their town. It's this story of Milkman like coming of age and coming into adulthood and feeling like he doesn't have any autonomy, or like feeling this disconnect from the choices that he makes and the way his life is going. So we see his relationships with his family. We see a romantic relationship that goes astray, a close friendship that really like shifts as he and this person grow older. This book, especially like compared to the other Toni Morrison that I've read, has very specific references to the civil rights movement and events that were happening in like the 60s, 70s. So Emmett Till's murder comes up, the church bombing where 3 young girls died comes up, discussions of and responses to civil rights and racial injustice and racial violence, or violence against Black people, is very strong in this book. Yeah, I love Toni Morrison's writing. I love the element of mysticism and like otherworldliness that she applies to her stories that are like at the core realistic, and was glad that I read this. Next, I listened to the audiobook of The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, and it made me cry. This is about Xiomara, who is living in the Bronx and questioning religion and finding her voice through like her practice of writing poetry, and also this like newfound practice of spoken word and slam poetry. This is a just beautiful coming of age story that's written in verse, and I am not the first person to sing its praises. It's so good, and the audiobook is beautiful. It is read by the author. Next, I read Einstein's Dreams by Alan Lightman, which is a short book about time. It's structured like overall there is this narrative of like Albert Einstein working as a clerk and talking to a friend of his, but that's a really like small part of the book. It's mostly like meditations on time, meditations on like how time is experienced, and how it's ordered. And I enjoyed reading it, but I think I need to revisit it. Like I would like to revisit it soon. So I've put the audiobook on hold, and I think that might be a better way to consume it. Last, but certainly not least, oh my god, I am so happy to finally be done with this book. Chloe plus Olivia, an anthology of lesbian literature from the 17th century to the present, edited by Lillian Faderman. Oh my god. I have been reading this book for 4 years, I think. I'm not kidding. And it's really heavy, so I'm not gonna hold it up the whole time. But story time. I went to school in Portland. I'm moving back soon. Hooray. Soon after I came out, I think, as probably a lot of people experience, I felt this intense need to consume things that were queer, to like just jump headfirst into all the queer stuff. So I found this at a used bookstore, and I had like never heard of it and never seen it, and like I was like, of course, as someone who like just came out and is like just now feeling some sort of like celebration about my attraction towards women, like this is what I need to read this. And so I started it. That was what, 2017? Now here we are, 2021, and it's my time with this bad boy is not over, because I think this is a good thing for me to be able to like reference. But this is, as it says on the tin, a anthology of lesbian literature. This goes from Montaigne and Rousseau and like philosophers being like, oh my god, lesbians are evil, up until the 90s. This was published in like the mid 90s. And I found some poets in here who I really like. I found some fiction writers and short story. There are like poems and short stories. The entirety of Carmilla is in here, which I don't think was necessary, but okay. Yeah, I was able to find some queer writers who I want to look into more and read their works, and there were clearly some that I knew of already. I think this would have been a better experience had I read it kind of all in 1 year, because I think baby queer me needed it a lot more than current me needs it, especially because as my knowledge of queer theory grew, as my knowledge of feminist theory grew, as my understanding of intersectionalities and everything just like grew, there were some things that I started noticing with Lillian Faderman's introductions, and yeah, that were just kind of weird. And I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, but especially the like last section that I read this year, she was real salty about post-feminist lesbian writing and post-feminist lesbian writers. I find it kind of a little bit funny, because she would introduce them, and for the ones that she felt were not paying adequate homage to lesbian feminist writers, like the previous generation of lesbian writers, she was like, I don't know, a little bit salty about it, and was like, this person is doing all these things that lesbian feminist writers like fought against, so the description of like lesbian BDSM or some just like cruder, less assimilationist, postmodernist lesbian writers, she would be like, they're doing all these things And they really owe it to the lesbian feminist writers who fought for them to be able to do this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I get what you're saying, but also just let people live. It felt a lot like some of the banter happening between like Gen X and like young millennial Gen Zs. I don't know why. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would recommend this to everyone. I think it's dated. Ooh, this is nice. Why wasn't it like this the whole time? I don't think everyone should read this. I don't think everyone has to read this. I think if you are looking for an anthology of lesbian literature, then like pick it up. It's kind of fun to have. It's kind of fun to say that you've read. It's clearly not comprehensive because there are a good almost 30 years missing from this, in which like people have been writing and being queer. Those are all the books. Before I leave, let's figure out from this little box what other thing I should read. For Black History Month, I will be prioritizing Black authors, but that's something I try to do all the time. We have a poetry collection. Okay, so I'll be reading some poetry. That's good. I haven't read poetry in a while. That is a total lie. This was poetry. Let me know a book you read this January that you enjoyed. We're moving on to February. I'm really excited. January felt like it was like a year long for me. I don't know if anyone else felt that way. But yeah, thank you. Have a good day, and I'll see you in another video.